Welcome, and thank you for choosing to learn with us. I am Mrs. Sarah, and today you'll be stepping into my class, where you will learn how to read and understand English texts, clearly, calmly, and most importantly, with confidence. What you are about to watch is a guided classroom lesson designed to enhance your immersion in the learning process. And as you follow along, you will learn how to read more carefully, understand what you are reading, and grow more confident with every sentence you make. Be sure to pay attention, as I'll be popping up from time to time to check if you're following along. By the end, you will be one step closer to reading English texts with ease, understanding, and most importantly, satisfaction. Now grab your pen and paper and let us begin with our lesson. Good morning, everyone. Today you will be learning something very special: how to read and understand English. Not just how to read, but by the end of today's lesson, you will know how to read the right way and understand anything written in the English language. That includes textbooks, storybooks, novels, newspapers, magazines, and even those very confusing instruction manuals we all hate looking at. If that excites you, then let's waste no time and get started, shall we? To help with today's lesson, we will be reading a chapter from a book titled Frankenstein. The reason we are reading this story is simple. The best way to learn and truly understand is by seeing how what I teach you is used in a real text. By learning this way, you will be able to read English correctly, understand what you are reading, and avoid misinterpreting what the writer originally meant. So to begin, I am going to introduce you to 3 things that are very important when reading and understanding English literature. Number 1 is the sentence. A sentence is a group of words that expresses one complete idea. This means that when you put multiple words together to convey a specific idea, you have what is known as a sentence. Understanding what a sentence is very important because it forms the foundation of reading and understanding English texts. You won't be able to improve your reading skills if you can't grasp the basic concept of every English work, which is the sentence. So, do you now understand what a sentence is? Go back and replay the explanation given in the guide lesson if you are confused or unsure. With that explained, the next thing you should know is that every English text is made up of different kinds of sentences working together, just like how words work together to form a sentence. But I'll save that for another lesson. All you need to know for now is that a sentence usually starts with a capital letter and ends with a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. Is that understood?
I'm confused, Mrs. Sarah. What is a period, a question mark, and an exclamation mark?
Great question, Elizabeth. A period, a question mark, and an exclamation mark are what we call punctuation marks. And punctuation marks are one of the 3 fundamental parts of English literature I mentioned earlier. There are many other punctuation marks in English, but for today's lesson, these are the ones we will focus on. Now, to answer your question, a period is a small dot we place at the end of a sentence. Its job is to tell us that the sentence has come to an end and that our voice should stop. In other words, we should stop reading. So when you make a statement and end it with a period, you are telling the person you are communicating with that you are finished speaking or writing. Does that make it easier for you to understand what a period is now, Elizabeth?
Yes, Mrs. Sarah. I understand what a period is now.
Excellent. Now let's move on to the next one. Question marks. A question mark is a symbol that looks like a hook with a dot underneath, like this.
Excuse me, Mrs. Sarah.
Yes, Michael?
Isn't that just a period with a curly hat on top of its head?
I guess it does look like that. You know what, Michael? Why don't we start referring to the question mark as a period with a curly hat on its head? How about that?
I don't know about that, Mrs. Sarah. I know it sounds funny, but it is kind of long. Can we just call it by the normal name?
Of course, Michael. All right, let's go back to the lesson. We use a question mark in English when we're asking a question, just like Michael did a moment ago. If that question had been written instead of spoken, a question mark would appear at the end of the sentence to show that. And when we read a question, it tells our voice to go up at the end because we are expecting an answer, just like you were all expecting one from me. So remember, anytime there is a question in an English text, expect to see a question mark at the end. Is that understood? Great! Now let's move on to the exclamation mark. An exclamation mark, which looks like this, a period with a straight hat on its head, or an upside-down letter I, is used to show strong feelings to the reader of any sentence. Its job is to express emotion and help you feel what the writer wants you to feel. It can express emotions like excitement, surprise, happiness, or even anger. When we read a sentence with an exclamation mark, our voice sounds stronger and more emotional. Congratulations on getting this far! You now know what a period, a question mark, and an exclamation mark are. But you are not done yet. There is still one more to learn in today's lesson. I know I didn't mention this earlier, but another important punctuation mark to know is the comma. And this is what it looks like. A piece of macaroni trying to stand. Don't worry, punctuation marks like the comma are very easy to understand. Its number one job is to tell us to pause reading for a short moment, but not to stop completely. That is the job of another punctuation mark called. What punctuation mark has the job of telling the reader to stop? You have 5 seconds to think about the answer before the guided lesson starts playing again.
Is the answer the period symbol?
That's right, Daniel. Think of a comma as a small breath you take while reading. When you see one in a sentence, it tells you to slow down, breathe, and then continue reading. There are more uses for commas, but for now, just remember the most important one. It tells the reader to pause briefly before moving on.
Mrs. Sarah?
Yes, Adam?
So what you are saying is that a comma is like a baby period, and instead of stopping, it just tells us to slow down.
That's exactly right. Your statement shows that you understand what a comma is. Keep it up. As long as you remember that periods, commas, question marks, and exclamation marks tell us when to stop, when to pause, and how our voice should sound, you'll have a much better chance of reading and truly understanding what you read.
Mrs. Sarah, you've told us 2 out of the 3 fundamental things we need to know when it comes to reading and understanding English literature. So what is the third?
The last and final thing, paragraphs.
What is a paragraph, Mrs. Sarah?
You all understand what sentences are, right? Well, a paragraph is a group of sentences that talk about one main idea. You can think of it as a small story inside a bigger story, the bigger story being whatever text you are reading. When a paragraph ends, it means one idea is finished, and the next paragraph begins a new idea. Let me give you a visual to help you understand. Think of fingernail, bones, flesh, and skin as words. By themselves, they are ordinary, but when you put them together, you get a finger. In this case, the finger represents a sentence. Now, if you put several fingers together, what do you get?
A hand?
That's right, Daniel. You get a hand, which is just one part of a whole body. In the same way, a paragraph is just one part of a larger piece of writing. If the entire text is the body, then paragraphs are the parts that work together to form that body. Now, let us apply this idea to our lesson. This is a sentence. As you can see, it starts with a capital letter. It continues until it reaches a comma, which tells you, the reader, to pause for a moment before continuing. If there is another comma, you pause again. And you keep doing that as long as commas appear in the sentence. You only stop completely when you reach the end, where you'll find a period, also known as a full stop. Is that clear? All right, let us proceed. These are multiple sentences written one after another, and together they form what we call a paragraph. When you read this paragraph, you will notice that all the sentences express the same idea. That idea is introduced at the beginning and developed with each sentence that follows. When that idea is fully explained, the paragraph ends with the final sentence, which, just like we discussed earlier, ends with punctuation. Now, let me ask you all a question. Can a paragraph end with a question mark or an exclamation mark?
Excuse me, Mrs. Sarah, but I thought paragraphs had to end with a period.
So, what do you think? Can a paragraph end with other punctuation marks other than the period? Can a paragraph end with a question mark or an exclamation mark? That's what many people think, but it's not entirely true. A paragraph does not end simply because there is a period. A paragraph ends only when the idea is finished. I know that sounds a bit confusing, so let me make it simple. If the last sentence in a paragraph is a question, then the paragraph can end with a question mark. If the last sentence shows strong emotion, then the paragraph can end with an exclamation mark. Let me give you an example. Are you ready for school? That paragraph ends with a question mark. Second example. This game is exciting. That paragraph ends with an exclamation mark to show excitement. Do you see the difference? The only punctuation mark we mentioned in today's class that cannot end a paragraph, and by extension a sentence, is the comma. Can anyone tell me why? Do you know why a comma cannot end a sentence or a paragraph? Leave your answer in the comments, and I will reply whether you are right or wrong and provide the correct answer to those who happen to miss it. Now that you all understand sentences, paragraphs, and punctuation marks, let us put that knowledge into practice and take a look at the first paragraph of our story. I'll read first, so listen carefully. Victor Frankenstein was born in Geneva, comma, a city proud of its history and traditions, comma, and his family stood among the most respected in that republic. Period. Now let me break down what I just read. In this sentence, we have 2 commas and 1 period. After reading the word Geneva, I took a short pause, resting my voice briefly, before continuing. I repeated that pause at the second comma, then continued reading normally until I reached the period, which marked the end of the sentence. Now I will read the sentence again, but this time I won't call out the punctuation marks. Instead, I will tell you what I expect you to do when you reach them. All right, let's go. Victor Frankenstein was born in Geneva. Pause, breathe, and continue. a city proud of its history and traditions. Pause again, breathe again, and continue. And his family stood among the most respected in that republic. Full stop. You see how easy that was? All right, I have now read the same sentence twice, showing you how punctuation helps us read more clearly and understand what we're reading. Now it is your turn. Read along with me. This time there will be no guidance, so do what feels right. If you are ready, I am ready. Let's go. Victor Frankenstein was born in Geneva, a city proud of its history and traditions, and his family stood among the most respected in that republic. You see how easy that was? Come on, let us try the next sentence and make sure you have gotten this down. Here we go. Excellent job! You understood and applied what I taught you, which means you're ready to read the rest of the paragraph without difficulty.